These 7 businesses make a load of money. Now, if you've ever wanted to own your own business, part of the hardest thing that people struggle with is, what business should I buy? What business should I start? What has the profit potential to make me the amount of money that I need to make? Well, you're in luck, because this video is going to shortcut that entire process for you. I've gone out there and I've dug up the data on 7 different businesses in terms of their exact startup cost, as well as how much money they are making. All right, so if you stay until the end of this video, I actually included an 8th bonus business that we're going to cover, and I think it's really interesting. So make sure you stay until the end. Now, if you're not familiar with just how franchising works overall, when you think of franchising, you probably think of businesses like McDonald's, Taco Bell, KFC. But the cool part is that there are franchises in every single industry that you can imagine, like some of the ones we're gonna talk about today. Like one is a fencing company. They build fences, but you have franchisees making millions of dollars building franchises, and you could get the business up and running for less than a couple $100,000. And when we talk about how you can fund that, like, you only need 40 grand out of pocket to be able to get that up and running. So we're gonna dive into these franchises. If you didn't know, there's over 4,000 in the US alone. The good news, you don't have to look through 4,000. You're only gonna have to look at 7 or 8. So let's dive in. All right, so as we're going into this first business here, if you want to check and see if any of these franchises still have availability in your area, then you can go to franchiseempire.com/check territory. You'll be able to see what's available in your area, because some of these franchises honestly will be sold out and some are available. Let's talk about the first franchise, which is Festar Bath Solution. So a couple of interesting things about Festar Bath. We're gonna talk about, number 1, how long they've been in business. Number 2, how much they cost to get open if you wanted to start a business like this. And then number 3, how much money they are making. All right, so the first Festar Bath started in 1996, and they started franchising in 2002. So you're talking about a business that has been around for a long period of time, franchising for over 20 years. Their startup cost is between $113,000 to $253,000 to get up and open. Most people don't realize that the way that most people fund a franchise is an SBA loan. And so the way that that works is generally you got to put 20% equity injection, meaning 20% down payment, and then you can get a loan for the rest from the Small Business Administration. So you're talking somewhere between 20 and 50 grand here that you would need for your down payment. Now, those startup costs do include a franchise fee of $59,500. Festar Bath has about 75 franchise territories already open and operating. And when we take a look at their financials of how much their franchisees are making, after looking at their 2023 disclosure document, we've got, for franchisees reporting under 12 months of being open, average sales of $517,000. For franchisees reporting 12 to 24 months of being open, you've got $902,000 in average sales. For franchisees between 25 and 36 months, you've got $358,000. So I have no idea how or why that would go down between 2 and 3 years. And then franchisees reporting 37 months or more, so basically 3 years or more, averaging $2.1 million in sales. So a couple of interesting things about this business specifically is, number 1, lead generation. They say that they are a marketing company who happens to do bath remodels. So this franchise actually will run your advertising for you, you pay for it, but they'll generate about 70 to 90% of your leads for you on your behalf. The other part is that they recommend that you start the business from home. So you don't need a physical location. You can literally just start the business in your home office, and then you're ready to rock and roll. All right, the second franchise we have is a franchise called Assisting Hands Home Care. So their original location started in 2006 in Idaho, and they started franchising shortly after that. They've got about 170 franchise units already open and operating. Their startup costs are only between $87,000 to $160,000 to get up and open. Assisting Care does non-medical assistant at home. So think about it, as your parents, your grandparents, your family members get older and they need help with things around the house or just functioning, whatever it is, Assisting Hands is a business that provides caregivers to come in and help folks that are aging. You know, with record numbers of baby boomers retiring and our senior care population really blowing up, I think that this would represent an interesting opportunity overall. So when we look at the 2023 franchise disclosure document, they're actually really transparent in the way that they list it. So they list each of the locations, how many territories are owned, and what kind of sales that they're running based on when they've got open. So let's just look at a couple of examples here. All right, so here's an example. In Phoenix, Arizona, they've got 4 of these businesses open and operating. They started in 2009 and they're pulling in $7.8 million a year in sales. In Newport Beach, they got just one business operating. They've been open since 2008 and they're pulling in $2.1 million in sales. But now you may say, hey, Tariq, but these businesses were open 15, 16 years ago. Of course they're doing a lot of money in sales. Well, let's look at some that have been open more recently. So let's look at my neck of the woods, Florida. So you got one business in Polk County, Florida, which I'm pretty sure that they have a hilarious sheriff. If you've ever seen him, he runs some really funny press conferences. But they were open in 2019. There's 2 specific businesses there, and they are pulling in just over $3 million a year in sales. You've got one in Windermere, Florida. It's got 3 businesses there, started in 2021, pulling in $1.2 million in sales. Then you got one in Brevard, Florida. It's got 2 businesses there, opened in 2015, and it's pulling in over $8.8 million in sales. And so here's the cool thing about all this. Imagine that you want to start a business and you're like, I don't know what business I should start. I don't know how to put together all of the tech or how to go out and find the people or hire them or get the customers or any of that stuff. This is one of the beautiful things about franchising overall is it gives you a blueprint. It gives you a template. These folks aren't having to figure out the logo. They're not having to figure out the marketing material. They're not having to figure out how to structure the business overall. They're getting the blueprint, and then it's just their job as the franchise owner to execute on that playbook. And you got people starting businesses only a few years in, generating millions of dollars of sales, just executing someone else's playbook. Let's look at business number 3, which is an interesting one to me. It's called RNR Tires. So they are the largest franchisor of rent-to-own tire and wheels, which is, I didn't even know that you could have rent-to-own in that space, which is really interesting. They also do basic vehicle maintenance. So R&R has been franchising since 2002 and they are in 30 states. They have 23 corporate stores, which to me, that says that, hey, they not only want to be in the business of helping franchisees and making royalties off of that, but they want to own their own stores because there must be some money behind it, and they're putting their money where their mouth is. They've got 155 locations currently, but this is really an opportunity for someone that has a good amount of access to capital. Maybe you plan to raise money. Maybe you got a few of you and your buddies that are all going in together, because the average investment to get one of these up and running is between $600,000 to $1.5 million, which does include a franchise fee of about $45,000. Now, when we look at their disclosure document from 2022, we can see that they've got 151 of those locations that they've averaged all of the sales as well as their operating income. So this is unique that they show the operating income. Not all franchises do this in their disclosure document. To that point, you may be thinking, how did we get all these numbers? How do we get access to all these things? One of the cool things about franchises is all of them are required to have something called a franchise disclosure document, otherwise known as the FDD. And this is a standardized legal document that in order to be a franchise, you are required to have. It is required by law. You cannot be a franchise without a franchise disclosure document. So each FDD has 23 items. There's something called item 19, which is where if they're gonna say how much you can make owning a franchise, it has to be an item 19. Here's the cool part and how it benefits you and protects you as a potential franchise buyer is the franchise can't just go saying, hey, you can make $10 million owning this business if no one has actually made $10 million doing it. Think about it. Think of all your favorite gurus online that you follow that tell you you can make X number of dollars in this potential business where there may not be anyone actually making that amount of money. The cool thing with franchises is if it's not in their FDD, they can't say how much money you can make with the business. They can only say it if it's in that document, which helps to protect you as the potential buyer. All right, so the average RNR Tire out of 151 stores did $1.7 million in sales, with the lowest performing location doing $558,000 in sales, the highest performing location doing just over $4 million in sales. Now we look at the average operating income, they list $206,000 in the average operating income, with a percent of about 12% on that operating income margin, which is pretty substantial. 12% is it's not a huge profit margin, and they don't list it as profit, they list it as operating income. You know, you can use different languages, but 12%, it's like a good profit margin overall. That's one of the cons of buying a franchise or business that has a huge retail storefront where you probably have to pay a lot of rent, is that the margins may be lower. In a service-based business, with just wait until we cover number 6 in here, right? You're gonna see that it's low cost overall, and you could potentially make higher margins in there because you don't have an actual storefront. But when you're doing an average of $1.7 million in revenue, yeah, you're making a lower percentage, but on a higher amount of revenue, you're still bringing home a certain amount of dollars. Now in here, they also list their top 20 stores. And so when we break down their top 20 stores in 2002, the average store in their top 20 did $2.9 million in sales, with an operating income of, get this, over $633,000 in operating income, with a percentage of about 21%. So what that shows is when you're in the higher tier of performance, you're gonna also take home a higher percentage. The reason why this happens is because, think about it, if you're paying $10,000 a month in rent, whether you do $500,000 in sales or whether you do $1.5 million in sales, you're still paying the same 10% in rent. So the higher you go up in sales, well, then the higher your profit margin is, because it helps to compensate for your fixed cost. So here's an interesting little tidbit about this company. Over the last 3 years, there have been 0 terminations, 0 non-renewals, and 0 locations that ceased operations. That's pretty amazing retention for a franchise that has over 150 locations. All right, so I'm really curious, out of the franchises that we've gone over so far, which one of these could you see yourself opening? Drop me a note in the comments below. I'm really curious what's gonna wind up being the favorite so far. All right, we're on number 4 here. So Express Employment, they began franchising in 1985. Here's something that's interesting about them. They have locations in Canada, South Africa, and New Zealand, and Australia, which is pretty crazy. In the US, they have over 798 franchise units, and their investment range is between $100,000 to $400,000 to get open, depending upon which model that you choose in terms of starting up the business. That does include a franchise fee of $40,000, but get this, that franchise fee is actually waived in specific markets. So that's something that's really interesting. But basically, this is a staffing franchise. You're helping businesses go out there and staff their businesses, which is always going to be a challenge for any business, which is hiring and staffing. Now, when we look at their 2023 document, they list franchises that have been open for all of 2020, 2021, and 2022. For those franchises, the first 12 months of operating, they did average sales of just over $1 million. For the units operating their second 12 months, they did average sales of $2.6 million. And then for locations, for their first 24 months, did average sales of $3.6 million. Now, although it will be hard to find an Express Employment professional territory because they got 798 units open, there's probably not many left. But what happens with this franchise, they often have resales available because the franchisees have been in business for so long. Some of them are retiring, some of them just want to do something else. So if you want to see if there are any resales available, talking about existing businesses, whether an Express Employment or any other resale franchise available in your area, then you can go to franchiseempire.com/resales, and you'll be able to check and see what, if any, resales are available in your area so you can potentially take over an existing business that is already making money. Okay, we're talking about number 5 here. Number 5, franchise number 5. And this is actually the one that I told you about earlier. I said number 6, but it's actually number 5. And this is Superior Fence and Rail. Now, Superior Fence and Rail started out in 2001, and they didn't start franchising until 16 years later in 2017. Now, as of 2024, they've got over 100 units sold. And when I go over some of the numbers, you're gonna find out why they have over 100 units sold. So this is one of those ones where if you like the idea, you like the numbers, this is one of those that you're gonna have to move quick to see if the territory is available, because I can see this as one of those franchises that wind up just selling out very quickly across the country just because of the sheer numbers and what the potential is. So from an investment range, you're looking at startup costs between $130,000 to $206,000 to get up and open. That includes a franchise fee of $59,500. They currently have 74 franchise units. But when we dive into some of the numbers for full 12 months ending September 2022, they had 30 franchisees reporting there. The average annual sales was $2.8 million for those franchisees. Now, the bottom third averaged $1.1 million. The middle third averaged $2.1 million, and the top third averaged $5.1 million. And we look at those numbers, the lowest performer did $508,000, with the highest performing franchisee doing $9.4 million in sales. Now you can see why these territories are selling out very quickly. One of the cool things about this franchise is that they have a strategic partnership with Home Depot too, so that could be a huge contributor to their success. All right, let's look at franchise number 6, which is one that you've probably heard of, or at least maybe you've seen their trucks driving by, which is College Hunks Hauling Junk. I think it's a pretty goofy name, but it definitely sticks in your mind, right? So College Hunks was started by 2 college friends in 2003. They began franchising in 2007. Now they've got 184 franchise units open and operating. Their investment ranges between $158,000 to $283,000 to get up and open, which includes a franchise fee of $65,000. Not that you needed a description, but College Hunks Hauling Junk, well, they haul junk, and they're also a moving franchise. All right, so they have an interesting way of showing how much money that their franchise owners are making, but you're talking about the top performing franchisee is doing $754,000 in profit, which is an absurd number. Now, when we look at the averages, we'll break it down versus franchise owners who own one single territory and franchise owners that have multiple territories. So they report 63 franchisees who own single territories, and their average sales are just over $1 million, with the lowest performer doing $200,000. The highest performing franchisee does $2.6 million in profit. Now they state it as EBITDA, which, if you're not familiar with that term, is earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation. We're not going to go in depth in this video on what that means, maybe another one, so make sure you are subscribed down below, especially if you're getting value. Please hit the like button, it shows the video to more people, and just it's helpful to know when you're getting value out of the video. But $2.6 million in profit, that's crazy. So they show that the top 25% of franchisees average over $750,000 in profit, which is crazy. Those are just very fascinating and interesting numbers. But when you're looking at multi-territory owners, you're showing $440,000, the lowest performer in terms of sales, with that $11.1 million in sales, with the highest performing franchisee. All right, on to business number 7. Make sure to stay for the bonus one, number 8. I think you're going to dig it. Franchise number 7 is Arade. So Arade, what they do is they are a custom design builder of custom decks, screen porches, open porches, gazebos, patios, outdoor kitchen, fireplace, basically creating outdoor outdoor living spaces. Now, the first location started in 1980, and they didn't start franchising until 2014, so a good 34 years later. They have 86 franchise units open and operating with an investment range of only $120,000 to $140,000 to get up and open, which includes a $59,000 franchise fee. But wait until you see some of these numbers here. So when we look at their 2023 disclosure, we're talking the average performing franchisee that's a single unit owner does $1.5 million in sales. The lowest performer does $234,000, with the highest performer doing $5.3 million in sales. So $1.5 million in sales on average when you've only had a startup cost of $120,000 to $140,000, that's pretty crazy. One of the unique things about this business is the average contract price that they disclose is about $42,000. So really you only need to do a couple of projects a month to build a $1 million business. All right, on to franchise number 8. And just a friendly reminder for any of these franchises that you want to see if they are still available in your area, then you can go to franchiseempire.com/check territory to be able to do that. So let's talk about franchise number 8, which is the bonus. This is a company called Precision Garage. So they started in 1997, started franchising in 1999. So the investment range to get up and running for this franchise is between $137,000 to $302,000. They've got 111 franchise units open and operating. Now that investment cost does include a franchise fee of $60,000. Now we look at their 2023 numbers, they're pretty crazy. Guys, I saved the best one for last. They show an average sales of $5.2 million. Average sales of $5.2 million. The highest performing franchisee did $36.8 million in sales. The cool thing about this is they have a 24/7 dedicated call center that you don't have to create or build. This is one of the benefits of a franchise system. The franchisor has created a call center to support all of their franchisees nationwide. And so although you'll get most calls during business hour, the corporate call center that's open 24/7 can take those calls for you and can book those jobs for you. And if you want, you can even pay them to do that from the beginning. So that's less of a person that you have to hire right away. All right, so let me know in the comments below. I'm curious, which of these franchises do you like the most? Which one do you see yourself opening? Now, if you enjoyed this style of video, I recently did a video here about 5 low-cost franchises that make over $1 million in sales. It's really interesting and it's backed by data. I'll see you there.